of the studio. Whoops. Too late to close the studio door now. Everyone's gonna have to deal with it. Alright, hey, what's up, Hacksters? So, I've been messing around with a few projects, and that includes a door open alarm thing for when I show up in the office. It includes, I got kind of addicted to this phone tapping game a couple weeks ago, and I was like, how do I build something to tap the phone for me? And for all of those things, I discovered that reed switches would be the proper way to go about it. So I'd heard of reed switches before, mainly in the form of this door type switch. Basically, you can use this to tell if a cabinet is open or shut, if a door is open or shut, things like that. A book, you know, anything that sort of where you have pieces that are moving together and apart, you can use this to detect that. First, let me show you what's inside though. So this is a badge that we got. It's a cool little PCB, comes from Red Hat, and we got it at Open Source Hardware Summit, the Open Hardware Summit last year. And at the top here, you've got a little cool blue glass tube, and that contains two tiny little metal pieces, reeds, if you will, that when you apply magnetic field, they attach to each other, and it closes a switch. So they're very close together, but they're normally not touching until you bring this thing close into contact with a magnet. These are pretty strong. And so, yeah, that's what a reed switch is. This one is just, you know, a simple battery, and then you've got resistors going to each LED, and the power is just turned on and off as though this were a button or a switch or something like that. It actually makes a really cool little noise. Anyway, yeah, it's neat. And it makes this really cute little clicking kind of noise when you get close to it. So that's what's inside of these things. Let's just prop that up down there. And in this, you basically have a refined version of that. This guy is the magnet. It has no electrical connections whatsoever. It's just inside a fancy little housing. And then on the other side is the actual active component, the reed switch. And the cool thing about this one that I got off of Amazon is that it can be either normally closed or normally open. And what that means is that you can have your thingy, your project, turn on either when the two come into contact with each other or when they're removed, which is really cool because, for example, you know, you might want to have something come on when a door is open, like your cabinet lighting, or you might want to have it come on when the thing is closed. So that's really neat. And you can use something like this to tell if your garage door is open, any kind of, like, if your windows are open, open a little, if you've seen those little book lamps, I think those are really cool, and it'd be fun to use a small reed switch for that. Yeah, super neat. And so one thing that I hadn't heard of, though, until I decided to try this phone tapper project, is a reed relay, and I'll explain to you why that's a thing. So, for this phone tapper, right, it was basically an excuse to replace the gratification of getting imaginary points with the gratification of building something that would accrue the points for me so I didn't have to think about it, and thus I would break my addiction. In the end, I built this habit breaker thing, which you can see in a video from last week, but I still I wanted to play around with the idea because I'd been messing around with DC motors and servos and stuff, and sticking the stylus onto there. And I was being like, you know, if I have this stylus on here and I connect it to the ground pin on the Arduino, then maybe I can get one of these things to ram the stylus into the screen, you know, multiple times per second, and that will do the tapping for me. But neither of those solutions were very elegant, I thought. And, you know, they're also quite loud, and they would take up a lot of space. So I went to Noisebridge Hackerspace, and I was working on this thing, and someone told me about the reed relay. So I had been thinking, you know, what if, so the thing, right, is that you have to have a connection to ground. This thing has to be grounded in order to trigger the capacitive sensor of the screen. And so if I had a relay in between, then I'd be able to make and break that connection. and therefore I would have basically no exposed mechanical components, which would be really nice. Turns out reed relays exist. They're much quieter. They can't handle as much power through them for obvious reasons. They've got little metal bits. A normal relay has a solenoid inside, which has an actual physical thing that moves a little magnet around. This probably has something similar, or maybe it's just electromagnetic, like an electromagnet that it's turning on and off. That's my guess, because it's got a little coil around here. That's a great rabbit hole if you're curious. Look up what is inside a real relay, like a regular relay, and then have a look at the reed relay itself. So today I was messing around with a few projects and not really coming up with a video yet. So I decided to try and hook this up really quick. I ordered this off of Amazon as well. It is the OMR-C-105H. And there's a forum post on the Arduino forums that someone asking about how to hook this thing up because the datasheet isn't very good. And I noticed that they use a diagram, and someone answers this question, but the diagram doesn't show whether you're looking at the pins from above or below. I'm assuming that you're looking at them from the visible side, and that worked. So basically the way this is hooked up is you've got the two connections to be connected or broken are on either end. So those are the two that are going to be connected or disconnected based on the state of the switch. Then you've got a pin from the Arduino, and in this case it's pin 13. Oh, not that one. Yeah, that one. Okay. Pin 13, which is the same as the built-in LED, so it's really easy to tell if it should be working or not. Then this one is connected to ground. This one is also connected to ground because that's what I was hooking up to the stylus. And then there is this, I think it's called a snubbing diode, that basically prevents power from being fed back into the Arduino in an unpleasant sort of way. And that's a really pretty simple little arrangement. As you can see, the cathode, or the striped end of the diode, is toward the Arduino pin 13. And this is an Arduino Pro Mini. I also got down a cool little rabbit hole figuring out which type of Arduino Pro Mini I have, because it's got this little guide over here, but all the marker has worn off because it's my first ever Arduino, and that was 2009, and it's been jumbling around in my life ever since. So there's a few cool ways that you can tell which type of Arduino Pro Mini you have, even if the markings are gone. But anyway, so let's plug this in, and I want to let you hear the sound of it if possible, because it's really cool. I programmed it to do this little double tap thing, and you can see it going on the LED here a couple of times a second. And then also it just makes this really cute little sort of almost cricket-like chirping sound. I'm holding it up to the microphone right now. And I'm not sure whether or not you could actually hear that, but I think it's just really cool to be able to hear that thing going. And it is way quieter than a regular relay. That is confirmed. So if you have a project like this doesn't really work yet. I have a feeling it's either something about the timing or something about how the ground is hooked up, because there are a couple of different connections to ground. So maybe it's just always grounded or something. But that shouldn't be the case. Anyway, I'm going to investigate a bit more, not tonight. I hope that you've learned something. I had no idea that these things existed. I mean, I knew about reed switches, but not the relays. So ideally, maybe this solves a problem that you've had as well. It's very quiet, doesn't let a lot of power through, but it'll do in a pinch. Super cool. All right, have an awesome Wednesday, and we'll see you tomorrow.